Hey everyone, it's Jordan. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I will hopefully read before the end of this year. So I haven't done this kind of video in like 5 years for some reason. I know that a lot of people have done videos like this every year, but for some reason I did not do that in between 5 years ago till to now. I honestly don't know why, but I thought I would talk about the books that I would like to read at the end of this year, whether it's from authors that I like, or sequels that I want to get to, or just some random books that I just want to prioritize before the end of this year. But yeah, let's get to the books that I want to read before the end of this year. So the first book that I want to read before the end of this year is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This has been my TBR for a few years now, and I know this was hyped when it first came out, and I still haven't heard but nothing good things about it. But all I know about it's about our main character whose mom that died from suicide, and then she's meeting her grandparents from Taiwan for the first time, and then she believes that her mom turns into a bird, and that's all I know about it. And I know this has been my TBR for a few years, and I am really mad at myself for not picking this up, because I do want to pick this up. And yeah, but I'm gonna make this as a priority, and hopefully I'll read this before the end of this year. And the next book that I want to read before the end of this year is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. And the reason I put this on my before the end of the year list is because I know she got a new novel that just came out, a novel love story, which I do want to read, but I want to read this before reading that, because I've been reading mostly her books in publication order. But I know that this is about a woman who's visiting her aunt's apartment, and then a random guy shows up, and apparently he's a time traveler, and that's all I know about it. I know I started it, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. Hopefully I'll be in a mood for it to read it before the end of this year, because I know I really want to read this. And yeah, and I like Ashley Poston's writing, and she's one of my favorite authors, and I know that I'm going to love this one, but hopefully that I will be reading this before the end of this year, before I get my hands on a novel love story. And the next book that I want to read before the end of this year is Lake's Edge by Lyndell Clipstone. This is all I know about it. This is about a main character whose brother that has been practicing black magic, which is forbidden, and they're in this some haunted house or something like that. That's all I know from the synopsis. But I know that I also read this before and DNF'd it, but I know I really want to read this, because I haven't heard many people talk about this on BookTube, and I know that the cover keeps intriguing me, but for some reason I just haven't been in the mood to read it. But I know that I want to read this before the end of this year, especially when it's when it was on my 5-star predictions list a few years ago. The next book that I want to read before the end of this year is Cursed Princess Club by Lamb Cat. This is a graphic novel. I thought this would be a easier one for me, not just because it's a graphic novel, and it looks like a manga, so that's why I gravitate towards this one. I know that I probably will love this. This is another 5-star prediction of mine, and yeah, I just really would like to read this. Hopefully it's a quick read for me. Most likely it would be, even though it's a really thick graphic novel, but I just know that I'll probably end up loving it, and I do want to read this before the end of this year. So the next book I want to read before the end of this year is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This, like I mentioned, this is a book that's been on my TBR for a very long time, and I know that many people either love it or hate it. And yeah, this is a very hyped book that's been around for a long time, and I know that, like I said, some people either love it or hate it, and I want to know where I'm gonna be, and I'm just curious, but I'm also nervous about it, because I'm always like intimidated by some popular books, just because I don't know which side I'll be ending up. But I know that some popular books are a hit or miss for me, but I still want to give this book a chance. So yeah, I do want to read this before the end of this year. The next book that I want to read before the end of this year is Peter and the Starcatchers by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. This is on supposed to be like a Peter Pan retelling, but it's supposed to be like a prequel story to the Peter Pan story, which this has been grabbing my interest since it first published. I don't know when it was first published, but I think it was published when I was like in middle school or something like that. I'm gonna check. Oh, it was published when I was a kid, and I just didn't get it. So, but I know it grabbed my interest because it's a Peter Pan retelling, and I do want to read this before the end of this year. So, like, yeah, this came out like over 20 years ago. But I, of course, for me as a kid, I was still exploring my reading taste before I became an adult, so obviously. But I do want to read this because I know it's been on a few of my TBRs and I just haven't gotten to it yet. So hopefully, this would be one of the books that I probably will end up reading before it's been collecting dust on my shelves. And then I have a few sequels that I want to get to before the end of this year. And the first one is Two Dark Reigns by Kendar Blake. This is the third book in a Three Dark Crowns series. If you haven't read the first book's about three sisters who were raised separately, and they each got different powers. And when they become of age, they have to fight to the death for the throne. And that's the whole synopsis of it. I know I enjoy this series, and I do want to know what happens next, but I've had like mixed feelings towards the series. They're both for the first and second book are 4-star reads for me. Don't get me wrong, it's just the audio. I don't know which one I like better, is either the audiobook or physical read, and I kind of been torn since then. So if there's an audiobook available, I'll listen to it, but I just don't. I think the audiobook is not the route for me, but we shall see. But yeah, I do want to prioritize. Put this. This is a high priority for me for sure. And the next book that I want, another sequel that I want to prioritize, is the Camelot Betrayal by Kendar Blake. This is the second book in the Guinevere's Deception series, and you haven't read the first book. The first book's about Guinevere, but she's a changeling, and that's all I remember from the synopsis from the first book. And I know I really enjoyed that one, and I know that there was a third book that came out a few years ago, but I obviously want to read the second book and see if I want to continue on with the series, because I know I really enjoyed the first book. So yeah, it's a King Arthur retelling, but with Guinevere's perspective. And this is another one that I DNF'd because I wasn't in a mood for it. But I do want to read this before the end of this year because I have so many sequels on my TBR, and I'm just want to try to get as many off of my checklist as much as possible. Another sequel that I want to read before the end of this year, and this is actually one of my most anticipated releases of this year, which is The Darkness Within Us by Trisha Levenseller. And this is the second book in the Shadows Between Us series. I don't know if there's an actual name of this series, but I know that I want to prioritize. This is probably one of the first books that I'll read because it's already on my November TBR, and I know I want to read this as soon as possible. But if you haven't read the first book's about a girl who's trying to woo the Shadow King and try to get him to marry her so she can kill him and take over the kingdom. But then she finds out that someone else is also trying to do the same thing. And I love the first book so much that I really want to read this. I know I've read this the first book 2 years ago, and I remember reading it during my honeymoon, and I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this. I really want to read it, and I was happy that there was a sequel coming out. And yeah, I want to read this as soon as possible. This, like I said, I probably will read this before any other books on my list because it's one of my most anticipated releases of this year. And yeah, I do want to read this. Like I said, this will be probably the first thing that I'm going to read to complete this list. And the last book that I want to read before the end of this year, hopefully, which is After the Forest by Cal Woods. This is basically a Hansel and Gretel retelling. That's all I know about it. And I know that I've been enjoying a lot of fairy tale retellings that I've been reading this year at least. And I do hope this would be the next one. That'll be a 5-star read for me. I don't know why it's really dusty, but I know that I've been reading a lot of adult fantasy, and I know that this grabbed my interest when Al Cray was selling it in their store, and I like this cover better than the original cover because it's like yellow and it looks funny to me, and I just love this edition. It's very beautiful, and I do want to read this before the end of this year, especially when I've been getting to adult fantasy lately. So that is all for all the books that I want to read before the end of this year. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and comment down below what books that you want to prioritize before the end of this year, because I would like to know. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button and click the bell icon so you'll be notified if I ever post new videos. Also, you can follow me on social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads, which all links will be down below for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!